you guys able to see my screen? Okay, so MVC, it is basically model view controller. So introduction I have already given, but we will go through again what is MVC. Okay, MVC is model view controller. This is an architectural pattern to develop your applications. Okay, so these patterns recently arrived so that it solves some problem. Okay, and improve the product output. For this purpose we developed MVC applications. So that is a different pattern. There are many patterns like this in nowadays in the world. So there is MVP, MVC, MVVM, MVA. Okay, MVA means model view and anything. MVVM means model view, view model. Okay, like this there are even prism, something like that. Many patterns are there. Okay, among them MVC is the most popular pattern nowadays everybody is using. So what is the difference between the old model? So ASP.NET web forms we learn, and Windows forms also we saw. But what is the difference between MVC and normal web forms? Okay, so web forms mainly they have given the pattern like MVP, model view presenter. Okay, so you will have a model, that model will be sent to your view, that view will present the output to you. That is what ASP.NET. So there is no controller. Controller means which will control all the operations that happens between your model and view. So the data will be sent to your view. Data will be sent means in the web applications we saw from SQL server we are sending some data directly from SQL server with ADO.NET to front end ASPX page. From there the data will be displayed, or the data whichever is presented or inputted by user, that will be sent back to the database by using ADO.NET. Okay, there is no control on that. But here MVC you have a control. So MVC will give you a control how to display the data, what kind of data you can display, and what are the validations or data annotations. Okay, these are different things whatever are there. So all these things are supported by MVC. So model view, so if you give a model to your view, according to that model your view will be built and the view will be presented to the user. And MVP. So web forms, whenever people will ask you about MVP, that is ASP.NET Web Forms applications. So normal ASP.NET, what we learned in our earlier classes, that is what MVP. So no need to bother about that. You can just tell normal plain HTML web forms application is an example for MVP, and that is event driven. So in the ASP.NET classes also I told you that is event driven. So all the events, everything in that application, whatever happens, that decided by the events on the page, events on the ASPX page. So a button click, a text changed event, all these things will be processed by your ASP.NET engine. That engine will, during the page life cycle, all the events will be bind to the events. That's how they are executing the C# methods. Okay, in MVC it is not event driven, it is mainly model view controller. Okay, so whatever you do, that will be sent to your controller will validate the data and it will send to the database. So your model will give you the base structure for your entire application. Okay, this model will be used throughout your application. That's what model. And view is there is a view that simply used to present the data to end user. So if you see in MVC, the MVP pattern, there is model will be there, but there is not that much important for the model. So all the ASPX pages, if you see, we are not using any models there. Models means simply take a person class. So that person class won't decide your view. Okay, so how your view will be rendered is not dependent on your model. Okay, so that is what the main difference is, and the framework is defined in system.web.mvc assembly, and ASP.NET MVC is getting more popular these days because ASP.NET MVC Microsoft made an open source platform. Okay, open source framework. So if you are a good programmer and if you see something is missing in MVC, or if a new feature, if I add to MVC, that will give more importance or more value to MVC, what you can do is you can download the base code of this MVC application and you can prepare your plugin to this MVC and you can submit to Microsoft. They will review that, and if that is they feel that is okay and that is important, that will add value to the product, they will release that in next versions in MVC. Okay, so the very first time Microsoft came up with open source concept, that too with MVC. Okay, so that more people are contributing to MVC framework, that's why MVC framework is getting more and more popular day by day. And this MVC is lightweight when you compare to ASP.NET, because ASP.NET is mainly dependent on all the system.web and the processing view state. Okay, event driven means again the events has to be bind to the respective methods we have written in C Sharp. So because of all this, it is becoming a heavyweight when we compare to ASP.NET MVC. There is no event binding, there is no view state. Okay, and there are no server controls on MVC, so that it is very lightweight. And the Ranger engine, this is very popular engine. Okay, that programming also we will see. So Ranger engine is very fast in execution. That is a server-side scripting language. Okay, so altogether MVC is very lightweight, and the advantage of MVC is multiple people can work simultaneously on your project, MVC project. Okay, so if you take ASP.NET, each ASP.NET application, in that all the ASPX pages, if you see, so the current version of MVC is 5, MVC 5, MVC 6 has come, but people are using still MVC 5. Okay, so multiple people can work together and simultaneously on MVC applications. That's the very advantages of MVC. So as I told earlier, ASP.NET is a RAD model, so rapid application development model. You can deliver the applications very fast in ASP.NET, but MVC you can deliver the applications even more faster, because in ASP.NET, if you take a sample, a ASPX page, okay, so if you are developing a ASPX page, web page, each web page will be having one ASPX page and that's respect to ASPX.cs page. And sometimes if you take website, these two files will be there. If you are taking web application, you will have aspx.designer file. So three files will be there. So forget about the designer file. You will have the code behind file in aspx. Okay, so you cannot separate those two. Without code behind file, your aspx page won't exist. Without the front end page, your code behind file won't exist, because they two are tightly coupled. Okay, you cannot separate them. They are tightly coupled. That's one disadvantage. And if you have many views, so each ASPX page, if you take as a view, each view will have their respective code behind C# files. Means the length of code behind files is increasing. At the same time, you cannot separate them, but when you come to MVC there will be only one controller. So here we are talking about controller and model. These two are nothing uh, new. They are new words, but there is coding wise there is nothing new. These two are some CS files, some C# class files. Okay, so here you can have single controller which can operate, okay, which can handle multiple views. There is no code behind file in MVC, so only one controller file will be there. Each controller file will handle multiple views. According to your needs you can write multiple views depending on the same controller. Okay, so this controller is independent. There is no tightly coupled between your view and controller, so that the views means, I will simply tell you. So if you have a person class, this person class or person table on your database, so this person table has to be operated with CRUD operations. So whatever application you are developing, the majority of the applications in the world, they operate, you will have some database. In the database you will have multiple tables. So to fill in those tables, to get the data from those tables, to delete data from those tables, or to update data on those tables, so that is the majority of the operations you have to do if you develop any any application, not only web or windows, whatever. Majority of the applications you need to implement CRUD operations: create, read, update and delete. Okay, so in MVC also you have to do the same operations. In ASPX if we see the examples, we have created uh, screens to edit, delete, create and update and view. Okay, same way you can implement in MVC also. But the thing is, normally people will do 4 different pages. Means in ASP.NET it will be 4 into 2 8, because you will have ASPX as well as CS file, respective CS files. Okay, so if you take that example, there will be 4 views and 4 CS files. In MVC, you will have 4 views and one controller file for that. So this controller will give you the handle to 4 different files. So this controller can be developed by one developer, and these 4 views by developed by some web designer who is good in designing. At the same time, model means it is nothing. This person class, what we created in our earlier classes, some student class we created, right? So that student class, if you take that student class, is called as model, and controller is just like passing that model data from view to controller. Okay, controller to view, view to controller. Okay, and view is just your front end HTML. So that's why I have given you the HTML examples. Okay, so this way this model can be developed by one developer and controller can be developed by one developer, and the front end views can be developed by another developer. And at the same time, this MVC supports TDD. Okay, I'm typing here TDD. Okay, test driven development. This is another approach nowadays everybody is following. With this test driven development approach, people are developing the applications with the very minimum fault or exception or issue applications, very less issues uh, applications. Okay, the applications will not have any issues once the developer delivers. Okay, test driven development means, so you write test cases So in our maths, if you see, hypothesis and controversy, two different methods. Okay, the normal method and controversy method. So normal method means you will solve the problem to retrieve the result. Okay, x plus y is equal to 5 means, you know, x is equal to 2 and y is equal to 3. What you will do, you will directly replace x plus y is equal to 5, x minus y is equal to 1. So what you will do, you will arrive directly. So you will do x plus y plus x minus y equal to 5 plus 1, that is 6, and then you will solve somewhere straightforward. Okay, controversy means you will take, you will assume just like x value is this much, y value is this much. So we are going to solve in this way. So you will go in reverse way by assuming something, and finally you arrive at some point that your assumption is wrong, so that the answer which is given is true already. So the same way what you do is, everything in your development you take it as some exception, some wrong thing is happening in your application. So you will write the test cases. Okay, so how to write test cases I will show you, but just for theory part we will see. So you will write all the test cases before developing your application. Okay, so we develop, as programmers we develop some applications, that applications whatever we develop we will give it for testing. So that testing people, they do testing and they give some issues list. Again we will work on those issues and we will correct our application, so that in that chain of work, what we will do is, and at the end we will deliver a quality product. Okay, so nowadays before giving to testing, developers has to write unit test cases. Unit test cases means nothing but you have to deliver, you have to write all the test cases in. So if you are writing a method to add a student to the database, your ADO.NET method you have already written. So you are passing the student first name, last name, and his class, branch, and his age. So these 5 parameters you are passing to the database to insert that student record. So you have a method for that ADO.NET method. You have written add student. So this add student method is working correctly or not. How you will test? How you will know? What you have to do is, you have to write another C# method. From that you pass your these 5 parameters, some dummy data you have to pass. Okay, you have to pass some test data. So the test data will be validated from that. So with the test data, your ADO.NET method, actual ADO.NET method, is it working correctly or not, or it is throwing any exception, like that you have to test. Okay, if it is throwing some exception means you have to correct your ADO.NET method, and until, so you have to pass 4 different types of data. One is positive data, so all correct data you will pass, and second is, so with all the null values you don't pass any data. If you pass also, in place of integers you pass 0, in place of strings you pass null, objects you pass null, and test. So is it working fine or not? That is one. And range means, so if student age is only 17 to 21, what you have to do is, you have to pass the values before 18 or before after 21. So like this you can pass some range of values and you have to test that. Okay, and negative values, so in place of integers you pass decimal values, in place of strings you pass some integer values, like that you try to test. So that in these 4 test cases, if your method is working fine, that is, you have written a great method which is which doesn't prone to any error. Okay, that's the way you have to write unit test cases in even interviews also. People will ask what is the advantage of MVC. So advantages of MVC, whatever I told till now, those will cover in advantages. So model view controller, there is a separation between your view and controller, so that multiple people can work together, and there are no view state, no server controls, and there is no event wrap up. Means this is not an event driven program when you compare to legacy normal ASP.NET applications, so that it will work very fast. Okay, and then it supports TDD, test driven development, so you can write your test cases, and it will give you, at the end it will give you a great product which is very less to errors. Okay, that's how four different developers they can work parallelly on this product, so that four people can work parallelly, means the output can be achieved in very less time when you compare to ASP.NET. That's where MVC is getting popular day by day, and this is open source, so that more plugins are coming, and the improvement in the framework is very fast when you compare to ASP.NET. So this is all about MVC. Okay, any doubts on this? Or you want to any concept if you want to repeat? If you guys are clear, I will move on to next slide. Okay, I hope you guys are clear. Yeah, there are no disadvantages as of now. Okay, so the main disadvantage is its ASP.NET MVC has two engines. One is ASP.NET engine and another is Razor engine. ASP.NET engine has a disadvantage because it still converts to legacy ASP.NET runtime. So that's where people are not using that ASP.NET syntax, that ASP.NET engine. So people are moving to Razor engine, so that it gives so much flexibility for the users, so that your applications will run very fastly. Okay, only ASP.NET engine. That too in you have two engines. When you use ASP.NET engine, there is a disadvantage. Okay, so that ASP.NET engine given mainly if some people they are not comfortable with Razor engine and they want to continue with ASP.NET like coding, then they can use that engine. Okay, and it again depends on system.web namespace or library, so that is heavy library. People are now trying to decouple, or the dependency of system.web they are trying to remove. Okay, so that is anyway coming in latest versions, so that we are waiting for that. Okay, any more doubts? So these are the advantages of MVC based applications. Okay, so whatever this TDD, so whatever I just now spoke about. Okay, so friend forms based web applications, they work with small teams. So okay, so these are provides following features MVC. Okay, separation of application tasks like input logic, business logic, and UI logic. As I told, all the things there are separated. So your view can be developed by some designer and the controller. The UI logic means that web designer will take up input logic, and business logic. Input logic means mainly your views. Business logic means your controller's logic, and UI logic also how to send the data to UI and everything. So these three are different. And testability, it is a test driven development. All core contracts in MVC framework are interface based. So here interface based means, so as we learned in OOPS concepts, object oriented programming concepts. So we have the things interface and abstract. So this MVC, whatever you develop some contracts means nothing but the data exchange patterns. So the data exchange patterns, what you will develop by using some interfaces, so that it will guarantee to the end user something, whatever the agreement. Contract means some agreement. So that kind of the interface, whatever methods signatures you are using, the same will be implemented by your derived classes. Your derived classes can be your controllers or some other things. So all these things will be derived from interfaces. So and it is fast and flexible. So it supports dependency injection. So dependency injection is another pattern that is used by all the applications recent days. So dependency injection means you are decoupling. So there is coupling and decoupling, two types of concepts are there. So when you have coupling means everything all together they are in same library, so that what happens is they are tightly bound to each other, so that there will be the dependency is more on your development tasks. If you remove one component, your application, entire application will go in vain, so it won't work out. If you remove a simple component, one component, if you remove from your application may not work. So that is called tightly coupled or tightly bound. Okay, so loosely coupled or loosely bound means this is just like plug and play. So whenever you need some component, you just plug in that component to your application, so that it will serve a purpose for the time it is required. Later point, if you remove, it shouldn't impact your application. So that is what loosely coupled. So this dependency injection, it supports you the loosely coupling of the classes or containers in your application. Okay, by using interfaces you can do that. So if you have some common methodology among all the classes in your application, what you will do is you will declare some interface. From that interface, what you do is you will implement the methods in this derived classes, and you initialize those methods by using this common interface. Okay, but at your level, this dependency injection or inversion of control, okay, these things are not required. Even in interviews also they won't ask, but letting know these concepts is simple. It will be useful for you guys. Okay, so by using interface you will initiate those classes. Inversion of control means you will give the control to some external controller, so that creating a class, creating a context of your class and everything will happen through that controller. Okay, so you can see the dependency injection enables you to inject objects into a class instead of relying on the class to create the object itself. Inversion of control specifies that if an object requires another object, the first object should get the second object from an outside source such as configuration file. This makes testing easier. Okay, so you can dependency injection, it will give you a flexibility to add and remove components to your application, whereas inversion of control, it will get the controls, it will create the objects from a configuration file. Okay, it will create at the runtime all the applications, means all the objects, and it use. Okay. So another feature is routing. Routing is very important in MVC applications, and that gives a lot of scope for the application. So the friendly URLs, if you see some blogs or something, the URLs will be designed by users itself. So whatever you give, okay, the page title. So in blogs, if you are familiar with blogger.com, if you create any blog, your blog URL will be your post or your article, whatever you have written. That article URL will be like your article, whatever you have developed. Okay, that name, the article title, whatever you have given, that blogger.com slash the year, current year 2016 February, and slash your article title will be there, whatever you have given, so that it is very friendly URL to your browser. Even people, if they want to know about your article, so if they know your article name, what they can search, they can directly type in the URL. Okay, and that will give you your blog page, that will display your blog page. So it is very easy for humans as well as machines. So that search engine optimization, that is entirely a different subject. But why we use search engine optimization means to get the pages on top in any search engine. So if I write some article about ASP.NET MVC, if I want to get my article on top of search results in Google, so anybody types in Google about ASP.NET overview. Okay, my page, if I write some blog on ASP.NET MVC, if my page has to come in the Google results the first, or even in the first page of the results, so the SEO will give you that chance. So that MVC applications, the URL routing, so they will, that gives some friendly URLs and machine as well as human readable URLs, so that your Google search engine will give you this SEO. So SEO optimization, search engine optimization, is very easy in MVC applications. Okay, and REST services. REST services means representational state transfer. Okay, so web API. This web API is possible in MVC applications. So REST services can be consumed by any client. Any client means nothing but any application, any software application. Okay, it can be a web application, ASP.NET web application, or ASP.NET MVC web application, or it can be a Windows Forms application, or it can be a mobile application, or it can be a smart client. Smart client means that is specially developed for some kind of devices. Okay, so any of these applications, they can consume these REST services, because they are basically developed in HTTP protocol. And for HTTP protocol to consume any application that is developed in HTTP protocol, that is very easy in all the technologies. When you take we have web services also, that is SOAP protocol. That SOAP protocol has limitations in this context. They cannot be consumed by all the technologies or all the clients. Okay, so REST means web API, that also we are going to see. So nowadays the combination of ASP.NET MVC, web API, Jquery, and SQL Server, with this combination, for these technologies there is much demand. Okay, so that routing is one useful thing, and then support for using markup existing ASP.NET page. So .aspx pages you can develop, user controls .aspx pages and master pages. So, but this engine is little slow when compared to Razor engine. Okay, support for features. MVC lets you use features such as forms authentication, Windows authentication. Okay, all these authentications, whatever we saw in ASP.NET, the same authentication types you can use in MVC applications also. Okay, here session and data caching and profile state management, health monitoring, and the configuration system and provider architecture. So many things are introduced. So the caching is very useful in MVC. So if you are calling a particular method, yeah, yeah, Indra, tell me.
Uh, can you please tell me about SEO, like search engine optimization? You said that if you want your article in the top of the search list, so how it works?
Yeah, that is a different subject entirely. Indra. So
Okay.
that takes another course, okay? So, but how it has to display, how it gets into the first place in any search engine. It can be a Google or it can be a Bing, how it happens, that is entirely different subject, okay? So that is not programmer's job.
Okay.
Okay, but what is SEO? I told you. So how to
Okay. Got
get
it.
your application URL. So if you search for anything, if you search for iPhone mobile, so your
Yes. Yes.
iPhone related websites will get into the top list. Okay,
So to get on top of the search engine, we use that one.
yeah. How that happens? That is entirely a separate subject and separate course for that. Even I don't know that, but I know the very basics of that.
Okay.
Okay, if you go to that line, that is a different one. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't require any programming. You need some English, means that sub language specific things. Okay, and then you have to
Okay.
work with all the Google, Bing, and these search engines. They will have some webmaster.
Because I always wonder about that search, like how this comes in the first time. Some things comes last, some things comes in the first page, some things comes in the next page. So that's why I got the
Uh,
doubt.
that's actually very simple. So your everything depends on your domain. Domain means the URL, whatever you give, the name of your website. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
Google means Google. Yahoo means
Yes.
Yahoo is your domain name. So your website name. So how frequent you are using that word on your page on particular HTML tags, that depends.
Mm-hmm.
And then how many websites are linking to your website, means how many websites are referring your website URL, that is another part, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and how many people
Okay.
are visiting your website frequently, okay, how relevant
Mm-hmm.
your page content, so your domain name and your page title, uh,
Mm-hmm.
how relevant your page content on your page, your page title and domain name, uh, you are writing about the same thing. What you told in your page title and your domain, the same thing you are telling throughout your page or not. So these are the major factors they consider. If everything goes good, your page will be displayed in top list. Otherwise, it cannot. So there also to do all those things again, you need to analyze their business and you need to do a lot of work. You need to communicate with a lot of websites. Okay,
Okay.
so that happens. So that's not programmer's job.
Okay. So
Okay,
it costs, right? It costs.
cost.
Yes.
What cost?
Like we need to pay for Google.
No, some ad marketing is there, free marketing is there, but ads, that is a different thing.
Oh, okay.
So Google AdWords something is there but I don't know those things.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Okay. So this is actually MVC architecture. Okay. So how it flows. When you send a request, okay, IIS web server will receive that, and their respective controller will be taken that action, okay, that request, and that respective action will be executed from the controller. Some data, some repository will be there, and data access using entity framework. Entity framework is ORM tool, okay, object relation mapping tool. So object relation mapping tool means, so earlier we saw in ASP.NET or Windows Forms, I generated one file, link you to SQL. Okay. So I told you that time this is very simple but not part of course. Later we may discuss like that. So what it will do is some EDMX file, entity data model file. So what it does is, you have two approaches in entity framework. One is code first approach and another is database first approach. So you design all your database so that you create all the tables, stored procedures, whatever you want on your SQL server, you create it. Next, you don't need to write any ADO.NET methods. Okay, to call the stored procedures or to get the data, whatever, you don't write any ADO.NET methods. You just give me what are the tables and stored procedures you are going to use in your application from that database. You just select those. I will generate all the respective methods and classes required for that. Okay, all the methods and classes required for that. So I will generate that. So that's what entity framework guarantees. So it only creates all the ADO.NET methods or whatever inside it, and it generates even the respective classes for your tables as well as stored procedure output also. Whatever output it gives, that output also you can generate, that entity framework generates, and it entirely generates into a library like thing into your models, and it gives you the context object, db context, okay, database context object. In turn it will return. So by using this context object, you can access all the tables, stored procedures in your SQL server, and the data whatever you send or receive, that will be a model. So in MVC, model view controller, this entire model will be generated by your entity framework. Okay, this model you can use in your applications. So model means nothing but a set of classes in your application, so those are useful for your application. So the classes, if we see in our earlier class examples ASP.NET, we have branch, class, person, and few other things. So for each one we created one separate class, right? So the same classes will be generated by your entity framework. You need not to write your model or ADO.NET methods to communicate. Your entity framework will give you the communication methods as well as the model generated for you from the tables. That is one approach. The second approach is code first approach. Code first approach is, you write your model. So you just write all your person, branch, class, subjects, okay, and even their marks, all these classes you develop. I will write my ADO.NET methods, and accordingly your model, I will generate their respective tables in database. Okay, so either way you need to develop one end, the middleware, as well as the other side your entity framework will develop. Okay, it will develop the other two ends. So you will have model and database communication, means data access layer, and then your database. These are the three entities in your applications and very crucial entities. So you either you develop your model or you develop your database, and entity framework will develop implement your data access layer as well as your database or your model. So that's the advantage of entity framework. Okay, so this entity framework model entities your controller will send to your views. Okay, that is the first diagram. And if you see in some other flow, MVC, how it flows. So user requests your ASP.NET MVC application. As I told you, everything here routing plays very important role. So you will have only controller action in your entire MVC application. To get the view, you will have a controller. So these views are bound to some URL patterns. Okay, so your routing engine, there will be a routing engine which will get the request and it searches for the request pattern. So if you type google.com slash something, okay, or else I will tell you blogger slash 2016 slash feb slash article 1. If you type, so your routing configuration file will be defined. Okay, there will be some route engine. This route engine, what it will do is all the routing information, some table it maintains, some pattern of URLs. So blogger.com slash year slash month slash some article name. Okay, this is a pattern. So in your URL, if you give blogger.com slash 2016 slash feb slash article 1, so it will replace. So it searches for the pattern. So the URL whatever you requested and this routing table has some pattern already, it is maintaining, both are matching. So what it will do is it will send your request directly to your controller, and that respective action will be executed. By getting the model from the database, it will get all the model information means your blog title, your blog content, and if you have some tags defined for that blog, and blog writer, and when it is written. So all this information is just a model. That model will be uh, got from the database, and that will be written to your view. Okay, so view engine again selects view engine will have for each action in your controller. Okay, let me open so that everything I am showing, I am telling you, not showing anything. So a routing table, two engines will be there, routing engine and view engine. Routing engine mainly to route your URLs. So it processes your URLs and it checks where to send the request, to which control, from which control the request has to be processed. In that control again you will have some actions. So these actions will be executed. That action respective view will be there in your MVC application. So that view will be displayed to the end user. That's what it will do. Okay, so whatever we discussed so far, we'll see in a simple example. So how you can create MVC applications means just create a new project, go to web, ASP.NET web application, or else anyways, I have two versions of Visual Studio. So here, so directly you can create new project template from here. Okay, web, ASP.NET web application. Okay, getting started. Okay, if you give okay, and then it asks you for which one. So MVC application, and then you by default it will be selected. You can add web API also here. Web API anyway we will cover last. Okay, no need to bother about that. That is very simple. Okay, and add unit test cases, it is there. Okay, you can add unit test cases. For this unit test cases, what is why this unit test cases means mainly to achieve TDD process, so test driven development. Okay, if you click okay, it will create a plain HTML with the default template. Okay, let me open it here. Nothing is here. Okay, let me create a new one quickly. Okay, getting started MVC, and then I am selecting test cases, unit test cases. So I created this project. Okay, so it will give something like this. So if you go to Solution Explorer, once you create it, you can see a sample project created on my page, on my application. So by default, it will give you few folders, app data. So it is mainly to save your database or data, all the database in your application folder, that is local database. This one not that much required. App store, this is very very important. So here we have bundle.config. So whatever JavaScript files. Okay, so by default your MVC application it adds reference to, just a second guys. By default, your MVC application will add reference to few of JavaScript files. Okay, one is Bootstrap. Okay, Bootstrap mainly used to give the compatibility of your web application in different clients. Different clients means one is web applications and then mobile applications, and on your tab wherever you open the website developed in MVC, it should look it shouldn't look some awkward or stretched. Okay, whatever. It should give some good look. So that is Bootstrap. And then Jquery. Jquery is mainly developed on top of JavaScript to support many methods, animations, or some predefined functions. Okay. So these are different types of files already your MVC application gets reference. Okay. To render all these applications, what you have to do is you are registering, you are adding these bundles of JavaScript, jQuery versions or whatever. So all these you are using in your application. So first, in the start of your application, you have to define what are the CSS files or JavaScript files I am going to use in my application, and then you will give the base path for this from where I can get all the JavaScript files, so that you are registering all script bundles and style bundles. Style means CSS, script means all over JavaScript. So all modernizer scripts. So you will have different categories of JavaScript and styles in your application. So some set of bundles you will use in some views, some set of styles you will use in some views. So you can define or you can categorize your bundles accordingly, and you can define those bundles here, so that these bundles will be these bundles directly can be added in the views, so that those respective files will get referred on your view. Okay, this is one bundle.config and filter.config. Filter config. Okay, so filter config means, and this MVC application entirely works on attribute based. Okay, what is attribute? I will show you. But these attributes define your access to your application. Okay, if a particular user logging in and he has to be restricted for particular views, you can define that. And you can authorize means the login, or even authorization means the access to the resource. So what are different resources the user can access, uh, and to access a particular resource, whether the user should be logged in or without login, he can access. So these kind of filters you can define. Okay, so whatever filters you define on your own, those you can handle, or you can add those filters here. Okay, that is filter config. By default, it is adding only handle error attribute. Okay, and then identity config. So this identity, this is by default given by the application. So this entire application should have some login, registration, and change password and everything, right? So this entire user database, by default, the classes and other things are created by Microsoft. If you want, you can use it, otherwise you can use your own. By default, they will give, they can directly be added to your database. If you define connection string, those tables will be created, and the user will be registered the registration details or login details all will be inserted or validated against this model. Okay, and then root config. So this is what I am telling about you, the routing in ASP.NET. So this root config, what it defines is, it will tell on what controller what action. Okay, this is one pattern of URLs you are using on your application. So controller, action, and then id is some parameter, and you can define it as optional. This is a route config file. Here you can add as many routes as you want, like this, and that too depends on your application requirement. Okay, so controller, action, id, so that where it has to go and execute. So by default, this is the default one. So in your request, whatever you do, it will check your means the first blogger.com, forget about it, and after that slashes, whatever follows, whether it is matching this pattern, okay, this URL pattern, or any other URL pattern is there. So accordingly it will match all the, accordingly it will execute the URL. Okay, so this is one. And then startup authentication, these are this identity config and startup are these two files generated by Microsoft automatically for your purpose. So if you don't want, you can remove these files, but this is a sample application template that is generated by Microsoft. Okay, so these are the files: bundle config, filter config, and root config. These three are important, okay, in our application to start with. Or even all these files also not required, only root config. If you take empty application, it will be only root config will be there. Okay, now we will see controller. So in this application already implemented some account controller. So here they are giving some registration, sign in, okay, registration, sign in, and then login or verify code, something like that. Many things they have given. Okay, so here account controller, this is nothing but a C# class. Okay, in this C# class, as you see in ASP.NET, all the code behind files, they are derived from page class. Okay, that is the base class for all the ASP.NET applications. If in interview somebody asks you what is the base class for all code behind files, that is page. But in MVC, what is the base class for all the controllers? That is controller. Okay, and it this controller will be inside your namespace system.web.mvc, and from this controller all the classes will be derived, and inside this, okay, if you have, you will have action result. Okay, action result means, so all the methods are called as actions here, your controller, and then inside whatever method you write, those are called actions. Okay, so controller and action. So this respective controller, this action respective view will be there on your application. So where you can find all the views means, you have a views folder. Inside this, with respective to each controller, there is a folder. This is account controller, and that respective account views are here. So you can see all these are account specific views. Okay, so this login.cs HTML. So here all the views, unlike in ASP.NET, there the extension will be ASPX, but here it is CSHTML. Okay, CSHTML, login.cshtml. And these respective views, if you want, you just right click on this method name, and then you can go to view directly, or you can add a new view. So what it will do is, if you add a new view, it will create a folder on the name of your controller class, and then it will add a CS HTML file with the name of your method. Okay, that is how this CS HTML file added, and if you go to view, it will directly go to here. Okay, and here I told you already it is MVC. So here what your view is going to use, what model it will use, you are defining here. So this will use some login model. So login model, what it is means, it is simply a class, simply a C# class, and this model will be used in this view. So how they are using means, they have some HTML helper classes. Okay, by using this is two-way binding here. Okay, the terminology is entirely different from ASP.NET to here, but once you get used to it, it is very useful. Okay, so just today I will show you the structure how it is. So tomorrow we will see the code in deep. Okay, so the views will be created. Okay, this is structure. All the scripts you can keep in scripts folder. All the models, again see account view model. So whatever models means classes required for your application, that can be created here. Okay, and then content, all CSS files and the images whatever you have, you can keep there in content. Okay, and then where is this file? Manage view models. Application DB context. So this one, where it is identity model. So this is application DB context. Okay, so what it will do is, it is created for, so this is some entity framework class identity DB context they are using. This is again derived from your entity framework only. So what it does is, it will create all the tables necessary for this class application user. So it is derived from identity user. This is again a Microsoft class. It will have some names, whatever it is, having some properties and names. So this we cannot dig into, because this is already derived from entity framework and it will have some properties defined in it. It is a system defined class, so that all the user identity related whatever you require, all will be used here. Okay, so default connection, so whatever that you define in your web.config default connection, this is default connection. So if you don't give any database connection string, it automatically considers its local database and it keeps in app data folder. Okay, so it automatically generates those classes and everything. So there is no database as of now, so it will generate automatically and it creates the tables required for it, and it saves into the data, saves into the table, that we will see tomorrow. Okay, and now we have controllers. So for home controller in test, okay, TDD development, for we have a controller here, home controller.cs file. Whatever is here for these action methods, you can write some test cases. How you can write is, right click on this method, and then it is not coming here. but in 2015 it comes. There I will show you tomorrow. Okay, so directly what you can do is, you can, this project, you can add a reference. Okay, right click, add reference, this test project. So this getting started MVC, this is a project that is already referenced to your application. So that reference added, so that for that home controller you are writing some test cases. So home controller, you defined, you created an object for this home controller, and then that view result, that context dot index method you are calling. Okay, this is method you are calling. The output you are checking whether it is giving something or not. So this assert is mainly to validate some conditions on the test results. Okay, is not null, the result is not null. So is it a null or not null, it is checking. If it is not null, then it will return true. So we can directly execute this method. And if you want debug, you just put a breakpoint here, right click, debug test. So it will execute only this method and it will give you the result. So the test case passed or not based on your assert conditions. So you test team task. So this got already executed. We'll have some test explorer will be there. Okay, test results. Okay, I will run it again. What is debugging? Still where the control. Okay, you can directly right click and you can run or debug. Debug means if you want to put a breakpoint and you want to use, just like you want to debug all the application, so you can do that on a particular test case. Okay, otherwise you can do run for the test. It will give you directly test result, passed or not. Okay, like that you can test all your applications, means all your test cases. Okay, this test case also tomorrow I will explain you. Okay, when we run this application, so this is the default template created for us from Microsoft. And if you see register, so this register, the URL you see, account and register. Okay, before that you forget this is your domain or your local host, wherever it is executing, that can be an IP. Okay, after that you have account and register. So here account is your controller. So this is account controller. Okay, so account controller will be there. So for all the controllers you have to suffix with controller name, controller word, and then you can keep whatever you name before that. Okay, but at the time of processing it won't consider this controller word, and it considers only account. That's why you can see account here. In this account controller, and again it search for register. So where is register? So this is login. So this is register. So this is my register. So here if I go to view, so what it is here. So this model they are using register view model, and here I have some email, okay, password and confirm password. So these are the minimum fields I have. When I click on register, the email field is required, password field is required. So this is the information it is showing. So this is how they are developing. Even more things are there, those things we will discuss tomorrow. So how these validations are coming, okay. So mainly routing, how it parses is your route config. If you go to here, first this controller will be replaced with your account name, okay, this account, and then action it takes this one register, and id is optional. So if you pass id or not, it won't mind, but these two will be replaced with action and register, and your route engine searches for that respective controller. Account controller is there on my application or not, it goes to this application, and then it search for your view engine searches for the action result, that action where the register defined, and its respective view will be rendered to your page front end. This is how it happens in MVC. Tomorrow more things are there, so how the validations happens and other things, those things we will see. Okay guys, any doubts? Are you guys are clear? Okay, thank you guys, good night, we'll meet tomorrow. Okay.